Hello everyone and welcome to the next tutorial here on the DuctTapeStuff channel. In this tutorial I'm going to fulfill a request that I've gotten a lot lately. I'm going to be teaching you how to make a duct tape flower ring. A lot of people have asked me to make a tutorial on this in the past couple weeks, so I thought I'd crank out a tutorial for that today. This is actually the third flower related tutorial that I've made over the years. My very first video that I ever filmed was actually how to make a duct tape flower, and then a while back I actually filmed a mini tutorial on how to make a flower on a duct tape, on a pen, just putting on a flower on a pen. So pretty much we're going to learn in this tutorial how to put it on a ring. So let's get started here on this tutorial. Alright, a lot of people have used a lot of different materials for the band on the ring. Like a lot of people have used like craft wire and stuff like that. I'm actually going to be teaching you how to make it completely out of duct tape. So the entire flower is going to be made out of duct tape, but we're not going to use any other materials. So let's get started here on that. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose a color of duct tape that you want to be the band. And I cut this long enough so that it's more than long enough to wrap around one of my fingers, because you always want to cut your duct tape longer because it's a lot easier to trim it off than it is to add more on. So I'm going to get this piece here, and now basically what I want to do is fold this piece in half to make the band. But obviously if I fold this in half, this would be a huge band because it would be half of this long sheet here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim a little bit off it so that when I do fold it in half, it's not going to be quite that long and quite that wide. So I'm going to take that, rip that off. Then I'm going to fold this piece in half right here, and this can be a little tricky just because the duct tape is going to try to fight you with a little bit, because it doesn't really want to fold in half, especially not this way. So we have our little band there. So let's say if I were using my index finger here, would wrap it around, and you definitely want to have just a little bit sticking up on the top here, because that's where we're going to put the base of the flower on. So make sure that you have a little bit sticking up on there. So about 3/4 of an inch should be fine. If you have an inch, you might want to trim a little bit off, but that's about right there. So that's our first step, making that band. So the next thing we're going to do is we're now going to seal this band together. So you're going to put it back on your finger. And basically what you're going to do is I took a small piece of that piece I cut out earlier. I'm going to stick part of it on the side facing me here. It's going to be a little tricky if you're doing this all by yourself, but you should be able to manage. You're going to cinch it up so it's not too tight, not so much that it's cutting off your circulation or anything, but you definitely want to stick it on there. Make sure it's just a little loose, but not loose enough that it'll fall off. And then you're just going to fold it back around and stick it down so that it stays on, just like that. Next thing we're going to do is fold in half and start wrapping it around. So that'll be our next step. Alright, so once you have that piece sealed up, basically what we're going to do now is we're going to take this piece on top, and we're actually going to fold that piece in half, so you kind of end up with a little bit of a stem, and that's going to be the base of the flower. That's what we're going to apply the petals onto. So you want to make sure you crimp that on just like that. Make sure you stick your finger in here just to make sure that it doesn't get any tighter, because when you do cinch this up and pinch it down and seal it up with a piece of duct tape, it might make the band a little bit tighter. So you definitely want to probably have it on your finger when you do this. So I'm going to grab this last little piece here. I'm not going to waste any pieces of tape here at all. I'm going to crimp that up just like that, and then I'm just going to very carefully with one hand just wrap this all the way around just like this. And bear in mind, you can redo this step, if the band does get tighter, but basically you don't want the tightness of the band to increase or decrease at all. It should remain the same. So once you have that little stem there, that little bud, basically what we're going to do is we're now going to take our petals and we're going to stick it onto that bud right there. So let's get started on that step now. Alright, so now we're pretty much going back to my old tutorials where I was showing you how to make the petals. So basically, if you need a recap on how this is done, I'm going to show you a few times on how to do it. And I'm going to pay dearly for sticking all these down on top of each other, but it should work. Basically, you take your little strips of tape that are they're about 2 inches long, and that should make about a perfect square when you cut them out of a long strip. You're going to take your bottom right corner, fold it to about there. And you want to fold it so that you have the letter L with the sticky side. You see that capital letter L there? Then you take your top right corner here, or your top left corner it would be, and then fold it down just like that, so you have a pyramid and then a little bar of sticky side on the bottom. Now usually this would be fine for a perfect flower, but what I want to do here is I'm going to actually trim a little bit off, because since this bud here isn't really as long as it would normally be on a normal flower, and if you're putting on a pen, it wouldn't matter how far you went down on the pen. But for here, you don't want the petals to overlap onto the band at all. So I trimmed a little bit of the sticky side off there, so we'll have a little bit more room. And basically, what we're going to do here is very simply just start applying the petals. So we're just going to wrap this piece around, make sure that it's good and tight, make sure that it stays on. The first one is always the hardest, so you want to make sure that that is wrapped around there. So there we have our first ones, and now let's take another color here. Let's take a little bit of the yellow. Once again, bottom right hand corner, so you have the letter L on the sticky side showing. Top left corner, fold it down, and that's just about right for the sticky side there, so I won't have to do any trimming. Each one's going to be a little bit different when you start folding it, so you might have to do a little bit of trimming, you might not have to. It all depends on how you're cutting them and how you're folding them. So stick that around. Once you start sticking them on, you definitely want to make sure that you are not tightening the band once again, because if you keep applying petals farther down here, it's eventually going to cinch up this band. So definitely make sure that you do not do that at all, and then you'll have the same exact thickness for the band on the bottom here. So basically what we're going to do now is we're just going to keep applying these petals the exact same way all the way around the flower until we have more or less a flower there. All of the flowers look a little bit weird when they first start off, but eventually when you start putting on all the petals, they do look a lot better. So do that step now, and hopefully we'll have our finished flower here in just a few minutes. So do all those petals and put them on now. So here's what it looks like after we've been sticking all the petals on. Now we have 6 petals left, so let's get these on here. Now I used 21 petals to make this flower, and generally about 25 to 30 is enough for a good flower, but just to give you guys an idea of how it's done, you can always make or add or more petals if you want to, or you can cut back on them if you so wish. So just applying these around in kind of a pattern. I've kind of been going like yellow, blue, purple as I've been going around. That's why it has that kind of swirl pattern to it. So we're just going to keep sticking these on wherever that I might need them. And of course we have our last one. I'll probably stick that right about here. There we go. So now from here you can take a whole bunch of different colors, or if you want to take one solid color and you want to just apply it around the side here, that'll cover up these like a whole bunch of conflicting colors on the side. Or if you want to make it look a little more uniform, but you can just leave it that way because obviously maybe it looks a little cool to you with a whole bunch of different kind of swirl colors on there, kind of like a mosaic almost. So that's how to make a duct tape flower ring. And basically the easiest way to get these on and off is to slide them. So you just take your flower and you kind of have to work it on a little bit. Basically once you get this whole little piece right here used to getting on and off your finger, it's going to make it a little bit easier. Duct tape does stretch just a little bit, and it tends to stay stretched once it does, so you will be able to keep that on after a while, and hopefully it's not tight enough that it will cut off your circulation to your fingers or anything like that. So that's how to make a duct tape flower pen. Hopefully you guys enjoy this tutorial. They're a lot of fun to make. They're great gifts for people if you want to make for them. I'll be completely honest, you probably won't see me wearing one of these around, but they are fun to make, and they're pretty easy to make as well. So that's how to make a duct tape flower pen. Just stay tuned to the channel. There'll be more tutorials coming in the future. Take care, subscribe if you want to, check out the Facebook fan page and the Blogger account. See you next time.